Okay then, you lovely lot. So as you've seen in the previous video, we covered all things commercial ground bait, edge, slop and across on your mud line. This time we're doing completely natural water ground bait. So there's two consistencies that I'm going to mix this ground bait. Basically for all your non-fish meal based ground baits, basically I'm using sweet skimmer today for an example. Now the way I want to mix it is quite on the dry side for me feeder fishing, but then slightly damp and overwet for sort of like me bowling, if you like. If you're bowling on like rivers, lakes, reservoirs, things like that, you want it a little bit tacky, a little bit damp, so it's going to take your bait down to the bottom. Both ways completely different to what you've seen me do before, my commercial mix, in that I'll put the dry ingredients at first and I'll mix them up with water by hand. There's none of this measure it out, put it in, put loads of water in. You can't do that with natural ground bait. So first things first, we're going to split the bag evenly between two tubs. They're not tubs, are they? They're blooming bowls. What are you on about? The buckets. They're not even bowls, the buckets. Cheers, Richard. So that's split nice and even. It smells amazing. How good's that smell, Richard? Proper smells amazing. So mix nice and even. So this one I'm going to mix overweight. Now again, folks, it's so important, probably even more so with your natural ground baits, that you are resting it a little bit. Again, I'm fast forwarding everything for you, but this 100% needs resting. 20 minutes, half an hour, come back to it, add a little bit more water to it. Exactly the same with the dry mix. What I will say, riddle wise, remember on the last video we showed me using a 4mm riddle. I've got a 3mm for this one because finer particles, obviously we don't want to be filling them ounce roach up and things like that. But even a smaller riddle, you know, back in day, I'm almost ashamed to say this, I used to use like a sieve for my ground bait. Don't say that, Richard. But yeah, it does need to be really fine. So definitely 3mm or even like a 2mm or even finer than that. So waffling, aren't we? Right, let's get some water in. So our first one, let me get that out of the way so Richard can zoom in. This is going to be for me overwetted, sort of like real damp consistency for like deeper venues, or basically when I'm not fishing a feeder, if you like. So again, give that a good mix through. Now by all means, obviously, it's easier to do it with your mittens, but as long as you're away from the bank, just get a whisk or a drill, you know what I mean? It makes it a lot easier, but don't do it near the bank side. God, it smells so good, that. So you can see that. Now what you will find with this, because it's sort of like biscuit based.
I like the buttery biscuit base.
It will go a lot tackier, a lot sort of like more lumps in it. That is why the riddle is so important, folks. A lot stickier. To cope with obviously the deeper water, whereas obviously the fish meal based products, with it just being pellets, you know, you give them a smoothing in your hands and they come out straight away. But obviously you can see the state of these natural mixes, they will be a lot stickier. So you can see how damp that is. Richard zooming in, see all the lumps and everything in there. So that's why you need to leave it. So that'll be getting left, let's say 20 minutes, half an hour. That's that one done. Now the next one, you've got to be careful with this. Foot feeder. So you don't want to be, you basically just want it like, I don't know, like, do you know, like cheesecake base, like the breadcrumb kind of things. You want it like, well, it's not breadcrumbs, is it? I don't know what you know what I mean though, like that dead fine, and you know what I mean, the dead fine, oh, I don't know what I'm on about, but I'll show you in a sec. Basically you just want to rub it through your hands so there's like hardly anything there. It's just sort of like hardly binding together. You see, I've hardly added any water to that at all. Tiny bit more. Obviously it's different if it's like really deep venues, you know, just change your consistency on the feeder, but as a guide, make sure it's really dry. That'll be about right, you know, folks. I've hardly put anything in that, but you'll see, you know, it bands together pretty quick. But it's this bit that I mean, you can smooth the lumps out, whereas obviously that one that we've done a lot damper, yeah, you can see the difference in the mixes. That's got more lumps in it. This one, with it being a lot of a drier mix, it's pretty much come to straight away. So again, that would need to be left not as long, because obviously there's not as much water content in that one, but you'll see the difference, yeah? See how it mixes and binds straight away. That's your feeder mix done. And this one, so pretend we've left it 20 minutes, half an hour, give it another mix through and get it back to roughly the consistency it is now, folks, yeah? Because we've only just left it, it's pretty much at the consistency that I want, which is bang on. So that goes through riddle, remember our 3mm riddle, That's it. But what you'll find this time, because there's like little bits of, you know, particles in there, obviously the biscuits and, you know, there's, well, all the different kinds of natural ground baits. There might be particles of hemp in it and this, that and the other, corn and things like that. Yeah, you've got to be really, really careful with how you're mixing it. See how much longer it takes to put through the riddle? Just simply because it's got sort of slightly bigger particles and it's completely different to obviously the fish meal. I'm not going to do all that, folks, because it takes blooming ages, but let me show you the consistency of that ground bait. Yeah, that's why you put it through a finer riddle. It's so, see how sticky it is, yeah? Just giving it a little squeeze and you see how sticky it is. But it's absolutely perfect for bowling in, you know. Combined with other stuff, I won't go into details, but combined with leam and things like that, create a really heavy mix. It just takes your bait straight down to the bottom. It's an awesome way of fishing, I absolutely adore it. I don't really do enough for it these days, folks, but it is good. But that's basically your damp overweight ground bait for bowling in, rivers, lakes, reservoirs, yeah, overweight. And then your feeder one, look at the difference in that, yeah, so light and fluffy, which is what you want on a feeder, because obviously a lot heavier with your feeder. It's taking the bait straight down to the bottom. You almost want it to, or you want your ground bait to sort of explode out your feeder once it hits the bottom. Or, you know, when you're casting in, give it a quick flick so it's releasing through the water. There's loads of different ways of fishing. I'm getting right into it now, aren't I, folks? Getting right into it, but that's the difference. Obviously, that looks like you don't need to riddle it, but I can assure you, you do need to riddle it. So again, you put that through a 3mm riddle and get it back to that nice fine consistency, and you won't go far wrong with it. So there's your two different kinds of natural water mixes. Nothing complicated. Just bear in mind, folks, if there's sort of big bream and skimmers in there that are used to sort of like your fish meal baits, things like that, just add a tiny little bit of fish meal to it, but not loads. But as a rule, stick to that and you won't go far wrong. Give it a try, folks. You will love it.
Right, you lads, very, very sorry to interrupt your video watching.
How dare you?
Quickly, if you haven't already noticed, we have managed to write a book, haven't we?
Yes, we have,
Which
Jamie.
is full of all our very bestest methods and features or whatever else we do on this wonderful subject of fishing. So if you haven't had a look already, go and have a look at winningways.shop and buy one for yourself.